I caught my wife's massage therapist's secret. I looked at the letter and laughed. It was a letter from the woman I hired to give massages at our house. She came every 2 weeks in the middle of the day to work on my poor old body. Grandma was right. We women keep secrets, the smiley face caption read. A few months ago, I placed an ad on Craigslist. Of course, you have to be careful there because you never know what might show up. But every once in a while, one comes across one that doesn't leave you cold. Of course, you all know what a keeper is. It's a lady who is not only attractive and pleasant enough, but has no real inhibitions, and once she decides you're okay, won't worry about taking care of anything that shows up. Add to that good hands and yes, my idea of a keeper. Now, being married, I've always kept that part a secret, not wanting to upset my better half. I mean, it's not like I'm having an affair, it's just a business arrangement for me. I get a job and a much-needed release, something my wife was happy to handle when we were both much younger. But now she has her own bedroom and I have mine. And like many long-term married couples, sex is a rare event that she seems quite able to do without. The wife's name is Leanne, short for Lee. She is 5 feet 2 inches tall and weighs 103 pounds, and when her body was young, she willingly went to bed. When things settled down, her style of dressing changed from pretty and a little flamboyant to functional, and right about that time she mentioned that I was tossing and turning at night, so she moved to another bedroom. In the summer, we would sometimes go to the local park, and after a few minutes of walking, we would end up in an area by the lake where clothes were not required. Lee wouldn't think twice about stripping naked and running around, and without fail that evening she was covered in hot clothes. I can't say I minded one bit. I was proud of her very slim and athletic body, so that turned me on too. Lee was a relentless tease, and that turned me on even more. Then came the change. At the lake she wore her swimsuit and never took it off. Then she got a new suit. A one-piece? When I asked, she mentioned that her belly had gotten a little bulging, which I don't think is true, but that's what she said. Next was a gray blouse and pants. She cut her hair shorter and stopped dyeing her long hair. When it was time for the bedroom, I began to suspect that my own life was about to change. We still had sex, if I pushed a little, but obviously with some reluctance, which was no real pleasure. Over the course of a few months, I stopped pushing, and she didn't seem to mind in the least. And so, close to going insane, one Saturday I found an excuse and went to a place I knew. I got my body washed, pampered, had a gorgeous hand massage, and went home happy and satisfied. Now I'm thinking, is this cheating? I didn't mention it to Lee, of course not. It became a matter of twice a month for me. I told my wife I was getting a massage, and she didn't react in any way when I told her how it helped with aches and pains and circulation and all that. It's good for you, honey. It will keep you healthy. She came over, kissed me on the cheek, and that was the end of it. I assumed she would have a fit of embarrassment at the thought of some other woman rubbing my body, but that didn't happen. I got braver, found one that came directly to the house. And that was good. A couple sessions and she moved on to taking care of things. By this time I knew how to let her know what I was interested in. Then I saw a new ad. It was on the website I was looking at. It was mostly call girls and oriental establishments, which I had already learned to avoid. Sure, you'll give me lots of big tips could get you anything, but I admit I was kind of cheap. So, some girl whose $80 to $100 I was willing to part with was what I was looking for. The new ad sounded like a maybe, so I sent a reply. Looking for old friends. That's about all the ad said. There was a picture of a slim lady, mature, with long reddish hair. And if she was a call girl, she didn't look like any I'd ever seen anyway. Heather showed up right on time. Her wife was home and greeted her with a wide smile. Yes, I know that in itself is odd, but of course I was sure my wife didn't know anything. I never mentioned the happy ending and she never asked. Stepping out of the shower in my old robe, I found Heather and my wife chatting like two long-lost sisters. I guess I'll go and get ready, I said. Okay, dear. I need to run into town and do some shopping. Have fun. Lee glanced over to me and they went back to their bachelorette party. I set up a homemade table in my bedroom to make it cozy and private. Lee was used to it by now, because by then I was having 3 to 4 different girls over for massages. I laid there for probably about 15 minutes before Heather finally came in. I was lying on the table with a large towel covering my back. "Sorry, your wife is a real cutie. We were really talking," she said, giggling. She then set to work. By that time, probably a dozen different hands had been on me, but it was immediately clear that Heather was different. Anyone who has been to a massage will know what I mean. There is touch, good touch, and there is a certain energy that is magic. It can't be taught. Those who have it, do it, and those who don't, they can be good. But it really can't be explained. After a few minutes, Heather had me purring. Even as we moved into rolling over, which often happens too early or too late, she picked the perfect moment. By then, my body was awake, and I was as into her as it was even possible for a man to be. "Is it okay if I take off my towel, Danny? It'll be easier for me to perform some of the longer movements." I looked up when she said that, and a cute smile appeared on her face. "Yeah, sure," I told her, surprised. It's usually 3 or 4 sessions, and before any of the newbies get to that part, trust builds. Heather took off her towel, but didn't bother to pick it up. The fabric dragging across my skin was delightful. "It feels good," she said quietly. Her hands moved to my breasts. She massaged me pleasantly. My God, that felt good. A man could understand why women found it arousing. She did this for quite a while, then leaned forward, reaching for the top of my thighs. The tips of her fingers ran lightly down my body. After what seemed like a whirlwind of time, Heather stepped back to the edge of the table and began stroking me. She pulled out a small towel and something that looked like makeup wipes, and in no time at all, she had cleaned up all traces of her work. "There you go, honey. That was fun." She patted my stomach and left the room. It took me a few minutes to gather my thoughts, but I finally got up and got dressed. Lee and Heather were sitting in the living room doing another bachelorette party. I paid her. She only asked for $75 for about a 90-minute session, so I handed her $100. Then she sat and chatted with my wife for at least another hour. "Heather seems like a very nice woman, doesn't she? Was she good?" asked Lee when she finally left. "Yes, she's very good," I managed. "That's great. Glad you liked it." Lee left for the kitchen. The next session was a repeat session, during which time Heather and I became email friends. Of course, we chatted about everything. Somewhere in there, I mentioned that my wife had given up lovemaking and had actually moved into her own bedroom. "That's too bad. Maybe she just needs some time or something," replied Heather via email. "I doubt it. I think she's just changed with age," replied I. It was about 4 weeks later when I got another surprise. "Honey, do you mind if I get a massage too?" asked Lee. "Sure, I guess so. We can afford it. Have you picked out a masseuse yet?" "I think Heather will be fine, if that's okay with you." Question mark. Well, of course there's no reason not to. I was surprised. "I'll tell you, when you have your wife in the bedroom on the table with the woman who has been giving you a happy ending for at least a couple months now, it's a little unnerving. I mean, they sat and chatted like old high school friends. I heard them talking about everything you can think of. They even discussed a recipe for pancakes from scratch, like I said. Party. What were they talking about in there? After all, Heather wouldn't tell her wife about it, would she? But they finally finished. Lee came out all smiles, so it wasn't so bad. I went inside, got my massage. It was business as usual. I got curious, but I didn't want to ask. Not really. Again, it was over an hour before Heather left. They sat around discussing politics, kids, growing herbs, and how much they both hate most bra manufacturers. I went out to the garage and started building a birdhouse. What a woe is me. A day or two later, I emailed Heather and asked her, feeling silly as I hit the send button. I wanted to know what Lee had replied, and maybe Heather had gone a little overboard. I guess Grandma was right. Women do have secrets. You have a very sweet wife. She has a beautiful body, she wrote back, adding an emoji. Needless to say, it was a bit of a shock. My almost celibate wife allowed a woman to touch her. I mean, her body and all? That kind of touching? From a woman? Such a thought had never even crossed my mind. I decided that the only thing to do was to talk to her. After all, if that's the case, there's no way in hell she could be mad at me for handling everything, right? Right. Of course I know about everything you've been doing, said Lee when I finally managed to broach the subject. You know? How? I asked. Come on, Danny. I'm not stupid. You go off for a massage, as you call it, and come back 2 hours later, relaxed and happy. I know a thing or two about men, and besides, I've been married to you for almost 25 years. You're not angry? I asked. No, of course not. I love you, and I want you to be happy. I know I haven't been a partner for you these past few years, but I just don't feel, very sexy anymore. She told me. I don't understand if that's the case. Why did you let Heather... Honey, she was the one who convinced me that getting old wasn't a big deal. Then she suggested I try one of her massages, one after another, and... well, She grinned. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, it is. So how about you and I? Lee stood up with a smile on her face. At least that's what I realized. Lee and I were lying in each other's arms, and it had been months, if not more, since we had enjoyed each other so much. So, what are we going to do, honey? She asked. About what? About Heather. What do you want to do? I mean, if we can get back to something more normal, we really don't need to. I was thinking I'd rather have her come in every now and then. Lee giggled. Really? Yes, really. Great. Works for me, I told her, reaching out to touch her chest. Later, as I lay there looking at my wife snoring quietly in my bed, where she belonged, I couldn't help but think about what Heather had said. I guess Grandma was right. Some women do have secrets. The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.